Hey, brothers and sisters. If you see me fanning a lot, lots of mosquitoes out here where I am. So, I just wrote something else and I wanted to share it with everybody. And this little piece is called The Strangler of the World. The Strangler of the World. And I think it's kind of like a Watchman warning. And I'm going to read it to you, but the first 2 minutes of my videos have been um, like really quiet in the volume. So I want to spend 2 minutes talking before I read. And I want to talk about money today, specifically our money. If you've ever taken a look at the money, up here at the top it says, let me see if I can get it in there, Federal Reserve Note. Federal Reserve Note. And I want to talk a little bit about the Federal Reserve and the central banking system as a whole today. And that's what I wrote this little piece about. This little piece I'm calling Strangler of the World. And I'm not sure how long we've been going for. Hopefully I'm past the little 2 minute mark where it's really quiet. I hate that. It's really quiet for the first 2 minutes of my video. I don't wanna read this until after then. I suppose there's 4 people watching. We're gonna go ahead and get into it. I'm gonna read what I wrote. Once again, it's called Strangler of the World. It's about money, specifically the Federal Reserve. See that right there written on your bills? Federal Reserve. We're speaking specifically about the central bank known as the Federal Reserve. All right, here we go. I'm gonna read this little piece now. Strangler of the World. Please hear me out to the end of this before you write me off. This message today is about money. The very system of currency itself, as a matter of fact. And the first thing I want to say is this. There isn't suddenly a shortage in metal coinage. No shortage in change. This coin shortage is just another tactic to psychologically prepare you, the American people, for another nudge into the direction of a digital currency. Must come with exact change, or a bank card, really? Now, it's easy to fake a change shortage because every bank manager takes their orders from corporate, and corporate takes their orders from the shot callers down at the central bank. Now, even if there's a plethora of metal coin, if these guys say there's a change shortage, then bada bing, you got a change shortage overnight if that's what they want. And in our case, the local central bank here in America is called the Federal Reserve, like I was saying. Their bank name is printed all over your paper money. Check it out yourself. Sorry, mosquitoes are driving me crazy. Try to understand when I tell you that the Federal Reserve is no more federal than Federal Express, more commonly known as FedEx. The Federal Reserve isn't a part of the government at all, as a matter of fact. It's just a bank. And like any other bank, it's got private owners. It's as much of a private bank as Chase or Regions, PNC, Key Bank. And if you don't know where your money comes from, I'm going to tell you right here. This private bank named the Federal Reserve, it loans the American government money, and they do the printing, and they even own the paper dollars and the metal coins, and they own the printing presses themselves that the bills are made on. And the American government gets charged interest on every dollar loaned to them. And there's a lot of dollars out there carrying interest. Trust me. Now, this bank with a rear naked chokehold on America is a 100% privately owned business, just like Walmart or Sears or Joe Schmo's Corner Shop or McDonald's. And this isn't top secret information. It's totally public knowledge. You can look it up. So these people who own the Federal Reserve are incredibly rich people, rich beyond the common citizen's typical scope of thinking. Not only do they own the Federal Reserve here in America, but they are owners of every central bank in nearly every single nation on the planet. Let that sink in. Now, they have been in this position, these families have been in this position and growing across the map for generations. Escaping the central banking mafia was actually a big part of America's founding. That's how old this is, and it's even older than that. Yet look at us now. We're the plow via our military that the central banking mafia is using to carve out a worldwide system. How bad is it when Americans fought to establish a vehicle to escape this? To be founded on such a principle and now be spearheading the central banking mafia's hostile takeover? Craziness. Now, at the time of the American Revolution, the central banking mafia had already had a stranglehold on Europe. But it didn't take them long after the death of the founding fathers to infect this nation, which actually was founded deliberately against them, to oppose them. Hey, Daniel. Fun fact. Andrew Jackson, the guy on the $20 bill, he was the first and only president to pay off the national debt, largely owned to the central bank at the time, and abolished that then central banking agreement. And he reinstated the practice of the federal government minting our own currency. Funny thing, Abe Lincoln tried to do this same thing during his presidency. Now, when Abe tried to do it, he was going to call the currency greenbacks. That's why we call dollars greenbacks today. Sometimes. Old folks do. Now, before he could get the job done, however, he was shot and killed. We all know Abe was shot and killed. Strangely enough, though, JFK tried to do the same thing. John F. Kennedy, he tried to do the same thing. And he, too, a sitting president, was shot and killed before he could get it done. Now, JFK even signed an executive order just before he died, and it wasn't honored. You know, we see how that went. But he even signed an executive order. Are you guys aware of this? Another thing, they cleaned and sterilized the money supply maybe half a year ago and did it because it's so dirty, right? And they broadcasted it all over national television to get attention drawn to it during a pandemic. Now, this most definitely sowed a seed into the minds of the fearful mask society. Yeah, I said it. And that will blossom and grow into the accepted idea that it would be good for us to get rid of tangible cash altogether. Now, this has obviously never been done like this before, so don't be surprised that their subtlety has gotten them this far and they haven't been stopped. And I want to tell you something that you should know. The US dollar is the world's official reserve currency. The US dollar is the world's official reserve currency. If the US dollar switches over to a digital currency, then the world's reserve currency is also by default now a digital currency. Now, it can be that easy to make this switch. One big fell swoop from cash to digital. Now, how much resistance do you think they'll receive on this? Look at the masses raging already, confused, separated, divided. If they get this done, then guess what? Whoever has control of this system is the ruler of the whole world via control of the whole world's digital money flow. They'll be the creators and disappearers of wealth. At whim, they could take and give any dollar figure amount that one can type into a computer. That should scare you. Another fun fact. And I tell you this so that you know it's serious and that they've been doing this under your nose for quite some time. Before 2011, there was over half a dozen Middle Eastern countries without a central bank. And Saddam Hussein in Iraq was one of the leaders in the charge pushing against the American dollar as the world's reserve currency. They hated the US petrodollar. So everyone knows actually too that he wasn't guilty of 9/11, and that's no conspiracy theory, that's even the official narrative. But after the horror we all saw on national television, they had us after Arab blood, and it's been that way ever since. Now, Saddam was guilty of something. He was a figurehead and a foothold in the Middle East for pushing for a change in the system. The central banking mafia actually planted the seeds of this push against the US dollar. You would think them warring against themselves would be bad, but no. They actually planted the seed of this push against the US dollar in these Middle Eastern people. And they did this because the Middle East nations, they're rich in oil. Now, being rich in oil, these little oil nations, were also being backed by Russia and Iran and China, and that made them just brave enough and just foolish enough to resist the mighty dollar man. And they paid for it. Look at the Middle East now. Our enemies are playing both sides of the narrative. Next thing you know, we had the perfect excuse to invade the whole Middle East. It was called the War on Terror. Funny thing about a war on terror, there's no clear standard for victory and no official enemy. It was easy work to work up the American people. All they did was accuse Saddam of W&Ds after 9/11, and we were invading the desert before the bodies were cold. After thoroughly whooping Iraq, the U.S., of course, did them a favor by installing a central banking system in Iraq, which they were opposing. They installed the central banking system in Iraq, a system just like the one we have here in America, because we're nice guys like that. Spreading freedom. Now, we've done that with every country in the Middle East that we've put boots on the ground in that didn't have a central bank ever since then. Ever since then. Now Iran's the only one left. Iran's the only country over there in the Middle East that we haven't invaded and that doesn't have a central banking system. Look, guys, we're not the liberation freedom fighters that they're selling us out to be on the news, to gear people up and be patriotic like this. The Republic, in my opinion, is dead. As far as I'm concerned, we're a corporate-owned empire now. And I think Christian America needs to wake up, because we're about to experience the vehicle by which they're going to use to unveil the mark of the beast. And I think y'all should get prayed up and get ready, because it's coming. God bless you. I love you. Have no fear, but know and watch.